Hey everybody, Misty Williams here, and we are doing a Facebook Live with Michael Tyrell. Did I say it right?
You did!
I did!
You're the first! Gold star.
He just told me the proper way to say his name, and in my head, I was actually trying not to say it wrong, but since he said the wrong way too, I could have totally butchered that. So I get points. For being
Extra.
So Michael and I have been having a lot of fun chatting before we came on with you guys because, as many of you know, I moved to Austin from Nashville almost 5 years ago. So I spent 15 years in Nashville and was involved in the music industry there. I started out in artist management. And so Michael and I were just talking about a lot of the same friends that we have. And it's really, really fun for me to see kind of this merger of my two worlds because I love music so much. I grew up in the church and worship was a really big part of the experience in the denomination that I grew up in, which was the Assemblies of God. So it's really fun to see a product like WholeTones. And today we're going to be talking about this awesome product that Michael has created that is so innovative in the way that it supports our sleep and so many other things. Michael has some crazy stories that he's going to tell us about the experiences people have had with this product. So I'm really excited for us to dive in. And Michael is just telling me that he's going to be in Dallas next month in May, actually recording another album. So I'm bummed that Dallas and Austin are not the same city and our paths won't cross there, but music is his world, and he is bringing a whole lot of love and experience and real healing to what he's doing with WholeTones. So Michael, why don't you start off by telling us just a little bit about what WholeTones is?
Absolutely. WholeTones is music like you've never heard it before. And the reason I can say that with so much confidence is because I've actually changed the way that music is heard. I've changed the frequency and the tuning of music. So that might not sound like it's a big deal, but when I unpack this whole story, it's going to become a huge deal. So the point is, for years, as beautiful as music is, and we both love music, as a child, I knew there was something wrong with it. And that's a bizarre statement. It's kind of a provocative statement. It's like, what do you mean there's something wrong with music? Well, I couldn't put my finger on it. And so I always wondered, I'm the guy that always thinks outside the box. I always wondered, why when I go into a music store, do they always hand the guy with the new guitar a box tuner that's already pre-calibrated to a specific frequency? I always wondered that. So I started asking that question, like, hey, how come A equals 440 hertz? I don't know, dude. So every store I went to, it was, I don't know, dude. So I heard, I don't know, dude, about 957 times in a row before I just said, you know what? I'm not going to give up on my question because it's a great question and nobody can answer it. So, I did what all of us did. I Googled it. Like, why? And Google said, I don't know, dude. No, just, but no, I just kept looking. I kept looking through, and Siri said, "I don't know, dude." But I kept looking through everything, and it was like there wasn't any definitive reason why they chose. Let's just choose a frequency out of the thousands. So I kept digging, and finally I looked up 440 hertz. And for our listeners today, hertz, it's very simple. It's Heinrich Hertz was the guy that actually came up with the measurement. And the measurement is nothing more than how many times a vibratory organ, our tongues, for example, or something physical, a guitar string, vibrates per second. So when I say 440 hertz, it means that whatever we're talking about vibrated 440 times in 1 second to equal a particular note, in this case, A. So I'm digging through, and all of a sudden I come upon this guy's name, Joseph Goebbels. And I knew who Joseph Goebbels was. He was the head of mind control and propaganda for Nazi Germany. He was the right-hand man to Adolf Hitler. He actually took over Adolf Hitler's job when Adolf Hitler killed himself in a bunker. Not a nice guy, and his whole idea was creating a beat system, or 440 hertz. They called it the German radio beat. And so they would broadcast propaganda on this particular frequency. And during wartime, which I found was amazing, that he went on this campaign to 15 nations to try to convince them to join him in tuning to 440 hertz. It was kind of a unilateral global tuning idea, so the whole world would be on the same page. And for your listeners, you might not know this, not being musicians or not traveling as musicians, but let's say, for example, I take my tuner from Guitar Center in the United States, and I go and I play with a worship team in Venezuela. And they have their own tuner, and we both tune to our tuners. We're horribly out of tune with each other because people don't realize that other nations tune to different frequencies than we do. But in this case of Joseph Goebbels, he was making this push for every nation to tune to this specific frequency. So I thought, wow, this originated with Nazi Germany. It can't be good. And they used this on Jewish people to try to do what? Instill insomnia by using a frequency that interrupts the circadian rhythm of the human body, or God's healing clock for us to get in bed at 10 o'clock. All of our eliminatory organs, all of our body begins its detox program and rejuvenation program while we're asleep in a perfect world. That's how it's supposed to work. This frequency interrupts that. So when I saw that, I was like, that's what it was. My whole life, that's what's been bugging me, is that as beautiful as music is, as much as I love music, it doesn't jive with God's genius of how he created our DNA and our electricity. It's completely the opposite harmonic frequency. So that was like, okay, great. Now what? So the next trick was, there was a wonderful man. He's still in Nashville, Don Finto. He was my pastor at Belmont Church at the time. And he said, hey, Michael, do you want to go to Israel? And I was like, sure. So I went to Israel for the most reason to proofread a book for him, Your People Shall Be My People, which was a bestseller book about the relationship between Israel and the United States. Anyway, long story short, so this was like, your listeners will totally love this. It was like, we landed Ben Gurion Airport, and I said, so are we going to get a GPS and everything? And he goes, oh, heavens, no. He said, we already have GPS. It's God's positioning satellite. And I was like, oh, okay. So what does that mean? He goes, we're just going to get in our car, and we're just going to drive until the Holy Spirit tells us where to go. And I said, I love this man. I want to live my life like this guy. This rocks. He has no plan. We're over in Israel. There's no plan. So he wanted me to drive, which is dangerous because I have no sense of direction. So I'm driving in a country I haven't been in before. And all of a sudden he goes, the Lord wants us to go to a coffee house on Ben Yehuda Street in Jerusalem. And I'm like, zoinks. So, okay. So we drive down. Ben Yehuda Street's kind of like the cool street in Jerusalem. That's where everything is. And there's this coffee house. So I park and I said, why are we going to the coffee house? I didn't drink coffee back then. But thank God I changed my ways. But I'm caffeinated for Christ. But anyway, so we're outside this coffee house. And I look at my pastor and I said, why are we here? And he said, well, while we were driving, the Lord told me this man named Reuben Duran, who's a friend of mine that lives in Tel Aviv, is going to meet us at this coffee house. And I said, oh, so he knows we're here? And he goes, no. And I said, okay, we're going to a coffee house. I don't drink coffee, but we're supposed to be there. And a friend of yours that lives 2.5 hours away is going to show up in this coffee house, but he has no idea that we're even in Israel. He said, that's exactly what God told me. I'm in. So we go in the coffee house. As soon as we go in there, I immediately hear an Amy Grant song instrumentally. And I'm thinking, this is a Hasidic coffee house. Jesus is off limits here. He's not allowed in this coffee house. And so I'm thinking, how's this guy? Oh, yeah. And then I'm thinking, oh, yeah, it's instrumental. So I sit down and I'm facing this piano player who's very, very talented. And he starts this, the staring and the staring. And I'm thinking, why is he staring at me? Then he starts giggling. And I thought, this is so awkward. So I kept staring at him as long as I could. And then eventually I was like, I give up. I'm just going to close my eyes and act holy and listen to the music. So I listened to the music. And I started recognizing all of these worship songs that we play in the U.S., but he's playing them instrumental. And I'm thinking, this guy's getting away with murder here. They don't know what he's doing because he's not singing any words, but this is like full-blown worship. So as soon as he's done playing, he makes a beeline to the table, and he looks at me. And here's Don, my pastor, who's like, you know, the guy has breakfast with God. He's just the most incredible guy. And the guy looks at me, and he goes, you're a man of God. I was like, he goes, that's why I was staring at you. I said, okay. And he goes, you know what I'm doing in here? And I said, yeah, I figured it out. And he said, well, this morning, Yeshua woke me up and told me that I'm supposed to give you my life's work. And I'm sitting there like, this whole trip so far is like, I'm getting blown away by the second. I said, what's your life's work? And he said, I've decoded the Psalms of King David. And I said, what's your name? And he said, David. And I was like, it was like one of those moments that was so smash mouth that you're just kind of frozen. Like you don't know what to. And he goes, no, I'm serious. I put everything in a backpack this morning, and he told me you'd know what to do with it. And you're the guy. So if you'll wait till my next set's over, then I'll go out to my car and bring you the music, and then it's up to you to do with it as you will. So I'm just going, oh my gosh, what's going on? So about that time, Don turns to the door, gets up, and walks really fast to the front door, and he's hugging this guy. And he brings him to the table, and he said, hey, this is Reuben Duran, my friend from Tel Aviv. And I'm just going, you're killing me, God. So long story short, David comes back after his set, hands me 2 sets of manuscripts. One of them is typical what all of us as musicians know. It's called tablature. It has chord blocks on it. It has predictable melody. You kind of know what it is, from looking at the page. But the other one was what I would call avant-garde notation. It was squiggly lines and little intervallic lines that would denote some kind of melody, but you'd have to know what the key signature was in order to be able to sing it. It's kind of like solfeggy or sight singing. So I just looked at it and I was overwhelmed by it. I hugged the guy, kissed him on the cheek, thanked him. Honestly, didn't know what I had. Flew back to the United States and played the tablature in the key that I had always known from our American tuners. And it didn't do anything for me. It didn't butter my corn, didn't make me happy, didn't feel special. And the other one, I didn't know what to do with it. So I did what any other white-blooded guy would do. I just shoved it in my filing cabinet for later, and went back on I was working at a church and went back doing what I was doing. 2 years goes by. I mean, people now, they just laugh when they hear this. They're like, you mean you had WholeTones and it sat in? Yes, it sat in my filing cabinet because I didn't know what to do with it. And the timing would have been terrible if I would have released it early. It had to be right on time. So, and you'll get this part. So I'm in my office and all of a sudden I feel like God's presence really strong. And I feel like he's saying to me, look at your Bible on page 222. So I have an NIV thin line sitting on my desk and I pick it up. Now remember, for those listening, page 222 might be different in your translation or your type size. That just happened to be the Bible I had, page 222. And I'm thinking while I'm putting my finger in the Bible, if this says anything about David, I'm going to come out of my skin right now. So I'm going through, So I get to the page 222 and it's a genealogy. And the last line of the page is, and David, the son of Jesse. And I went, no, it can't be this easy. Tears are coming down my eyes. And I said, just double that? And the Lord said, yes. I said, 444 hertz, that's still an A, but it's a different A. He goes, that's what I've been trying to tell you. So 444 hertz is my tuning center for all of my music. So when I say you've never heard music like this, I literally shifted music. It doesn't sound like anybody else's music because it can't. So the cool thing about 444 hertz is it's only 4 cents higher than what we're used to listening to. But what I found out real quick, and Nikola Tesla was the one that broke the ground on this. He said, if you could understand the magnificence of the 3, the 6, and the 9, you would understand the construct of the universe. Balanced harmonic frequencies make all of the difference between unbalanced harmonic frequencies. So 440 hertz, if you add 4 and 4 together, what do you get? 8. Unbalanced. If you add 444 together, what do you get? 12. Break it down. 1 and 2 is 3. It's a 3. So all of my frequencies are familiar in family by a 3, a 6, or a 9 when you apply them to the skein of Pythagoras. So all of my music is mathematically balanced. Then, to add insult to injury and make it even more fun, I had this other idea. What if I just create an underlayment of tone, of frequency? And what if I do it organically? Because if you go on YouTube, like right now, and you put in, frequency or whatever, you listen to like this, it's like a frequency analyzer, digital, and just like, boo, sounds like the TV's going to go off at 1 a.m., that horrible sound, and I'm like, how would anyone listen to that for an hour? So what I knew is I had to find a way to create a frequency that people would not only be able to listen to, but would be addicted to. So I had this idea, and I haven't told too many people this. You're like the second person, because this is how I do it. So I'm telling you how I do it. So I had a crystal glass, and I took water with an eyedropper, and I filled that crystal glass and then did the until it nailed the tuner for each of my frequencies, and then I recorded it. Then I went back to our favorite friends, Dave Davidson and the Nashville Strings, and got his A-listed quartet to play the same frequency with real wood, organic instruments, analog recording. Put those two together, and that's this unbelievable underlayment of frequency. And to tell everyone the truth, the music is just played over the top of that. So technically, the frequency underlayment is the medicine, and the music is a spoonful of sugar. So my music is a spoonful of sugar that helps the medicine go down. It's bilayered music tuned to a completely different frequency and tuning. And when you listen to it together, it has a profound effect on the human body and the human body's furry friends, animals.
So why don't you tie this into a little bit of science? Like what's going on here with the music and the frequency and healing? Like how are these things kind of dancing together?
That's a great question. One thing first my whole book, The Sound of WholeTones, The Sound of Healing, is one of the most easy read of the most difficult physics information you'd ever uncover. However, I have a blessed gift to be able to demystify mystical things. So the first thing I want to say is, all the way through history, probably the first song that was a #1 chart topper in '67 was Good Vibrations by the Beach Boys. And the chorus is, she's sending out good vibrations, I'm picking up excitation. So the very first thing we have to understand, even on a scientific level, is that energetically, even right now, it's like, I can say I love you right now and I can totally tell the truth because I do. I can see you. So when I send something out and you can't help it, you're going to do the same thing. You're either going to emit a high frequency, a positive frequency, and I'm going to use all of the generic topics people use, good energy, right? It's all the same thing. Everything is frequency, and everything has a resonant frequency. So if you're listening to a TED Talk and you go, wow, I really resonate with that guy, you literally are. Your brain is, your cells are going, yes, yes. It's like when you meet somebody in a food court and you talk to them for a minute and then you sit down and you don't want to leave them because there's something about that person. And the same thing can be true. You sit down in a food court and you meet a negative person, a person with negative energy, or someone that vibrates in another direction than you do, and you cannot get away from them fast enough. So the first scientific thing goes back to the most simple thing, positive and negative. Both ends, one battery side's a positive side, the other side's a negative side. What I like to do is go into a room of very negative people and become their helium. I love to watch it happen. It happens every time. So what I'm saying profoundly is that if you can arrange frequencies that are uber positive and lay music over the top of that with musicians that are just 100% tuned into God, and I'll tell you more about how that happened later because it's mind-numbing. When you're done, all you're offering is perfectly balanced frequencies that are intuition spiritually put together. Every one of those WholeTones frequencies people listen to was one take, spontaneous recording, and none of the musicians could see each other. We were all in isolation booths in Dallas in a separate part of the studio. And it happened like there was the unseen conductor, and everybody was sensitive enough to hear the voice of the spirit and create WholeTones that way. So that's the beginning part of it anyway. Scientifically, I mean, we could break down the frequencies later if you'd like to, but scientifically, all of your organs, cells, everything has a resonant frequency or an atomic weight. Like, you know, you probably saw the 7 pounds, you know, like that movie 7 pounds, like how much, you know, the heart weight in that case. Well, everybody's heart weighs a different, brain different, liver different. We all don't have identical anything. That's why we're all so profoundly and wonderfully different. So what I did from a scientific level is I found out what all the resonant frequencies are of all the major organs in the body, cells. And then I did something really cool. I oscillated the tone. Why? Simple. If your heart is 7.8 ounces and mine's 7.2, if I use a specific frequency that is like purely straight, it's only going to hit whatever one I calibrate it for. If I had 7.8, but if I oscillate, an oscillate is just like an opera singer when they start, you know, their voices warble. That's an oscillation. So I can turn a sine wave into an oscillating sine wave. Now I've spread that frequency out to the size of everybody's heart. So now I can affect people on a broad level by simply oscillating a positive frequency. So scientifically, and I have to be careful because I can't make medical claims. The government got really mad at me because I was making medical claims as a musician, so I can't do that. All I can tell you is we have over 100,000 healing testimonies. I've just finished with a product we're going to be talking about today, which is WholeTones to Sleep. Just finished a massive sleep study that is going to substantiate everything that I've ever said in one fell swoop, and is being published in a bunch of medical journals right now. So
awesome. Yeah, really exciting. So it seems like this was like kind of a faith walk, like putting all this together. What did you expect whenever you put WholeTones out there the first time? Like, how did you expect people to respond to it?
Well, the first thing I would say is I didn't really have any expectations because, like you said, it was 100% faith. So much to the point where, you know, as you know, in Nashville, I mean, I was a producer, engineer, session musician, and there's a Nashville number system. I mean, Nashville has its own way of recording music. So you get very ingrained, especially if you're a producer, of how we do it. This is how I do it. This is how I mic this. So I had all of this stuff going on. This is really going to hit home with a lot of people right now. It could be even life-changing. And all of a sudden, God asked me to do something, and I don't know how to do any of it. It's outside my bandwidth. He asked me to change everything about how I do everything. And when I was interviewed by like Forbes, Rolling Stone, Inc. magazine, Fortune 500, the first question they asked is, what's the secret of your success? And I said, well, I'll only tell you if you really print it, because it's pretty profound. I said, and it's embarrassing because I can say that I spent 52 years on this planet before I learned the number one way to be successful is to get out of God's way, because he's already successful and he knows exactly what you're designed to do. And what we do most of our lives is we go, Lord, would you just bless this? And I really feel led to do this. So will you bless this? But I asked that question. I said, Dad, what do you want to do with me? I've been doing this for years. And this obviously, he goes, I don't want to do anything you're doing right now. And I was like, oh, you don't? And he goes, nope, this is what I want you to do. And then the next part is just doing it. So when I walked into that studio, oh my gosh, there's all these young, great musicians in there waiting for lead sheets, music, explanation, you know, instrumentation. And I sit on the floor cross-legged and start to cry and say, I can't explain it. I've got these tones in my heart. And when I'm going to go to the well and take these songs out with me, and when they do, I'm just going to tell you what to do. And that's exactly what happened. I said, oh, and don't worry, you're already getting paid. You don't have to turn your egg timer over. You're already on the clock. Just pray for me. So when these songs started literally forming and coming out of me, I would tell the keyboard, get your keyboard player and play this. You play this, you play this. And then when I felt like everybody had an idea, then they'd push the red light, we'd start recording, and it was one take every time, 22 minutes and 22 seconds long. What did I think would happen? My hope was that I could change the world. That was my hope. But what I thought would happen, I didn't really have a clue. What did happen was I recorded 2.5 hours of music, spontaneous music, in 7 days. And while I'm finishing the last mix, a very stoic engineer working with me in Dallas is rubbing his eyes, and I could tell he'd been crying. And I said, what's going on? He goes, do you have any idea what you just did? And I said, no. He said, you just recorded 2.5 hours of perfect music. And he goes, and tonight's Passover. You just finished on Passover. And I had no idea, because I wasn't thinking about anything. I was in the studio and focused on it. So the first clue that I had that I really had something was my wife flew in to pick me up at the studio and drive home with me from Dallas back to Florida. And of course, her initial question is, can I hear the music? And I'm like, that's scary, because my wife is a straight shooter, you know, which is really good for me. Like, she tells me the way it is and doesn't buy into any press or anything, just straight up. So I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is the craziest music I've ever heard. I wonder what she's going to think. And so we're backing out of the studio, and I put the first disc in. And by the time we got to the stop sign, my wife is crying hysterically. And she looked over at me and she said, this is your magnum opus. This is the reason why God put you here. And I fell apart, because for her to say that meant more to me at the moment than anything anybody could have ever said, because I knew it was the truth. So the next thing was, what do we do with this, right? And I met a company, and they thought, hey, we could probably market this and see what happens. It went viral in like 6 weeks. So if God has intention for something, if he wants something, if it's really his, if he mandates it and asks somebody crazy enough like me to do it, it's like a leaf in the wind. He'll blow it all over the world. We're in 174 nations today. I mean, I've never looked back. I'm just like, I've changed the way I do everything. Every morning when I wake up, the ritual is I get my computer, I get my cup of coffee, I sit on the back porch and I cry. I get emails from all around the world of testimonials. I brought some today too, but I have testimonials of people that have experienced what I was hoping they would experience.
Yeah. So you have some really awesome testimonials of people who have experienced a profound impact on their sleep, on PTSD symptoms, on relationships, their stress, their ability to focus and be productive. And, you know, it probably things that you never imagined would impact people. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about what people are experiencing with this music?
Sure. Well, the one thing that was first and foremost, before I read you some of these, you know, I'm really in touch with, I call them my WholeTonians. I'm really in touch with, just like you're in touch with your listeners, I'm in touch with the people that support what I do, and I love them with all my heart, and I listen to them. And so when these started pouring out, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I mean, I saw biblical proportion miracle stuff, like crazy things happening, but I was really excited about the sleep thing because I had met with Dr. Oz in New York, and he made this statement. He said, if you're not sleeping, he said, it doesn't matter what allopathic or supplemental, you know, medicine or vitamins you're taking or what, he goes, if you're not sleeping a minimum of 6 to 8 hours a day, your body cannot heal, because God created the body to heal itself during the sleep cycle. So if you're not getting sleep, you can't heal no matter what you do. And that hit me so hard. Then I looked up the demographics in our own country. 70 million people in America today suffer from some form of sleeping disorder. That's an epidemic.
Yeah.
And I just felt like that was like, I'm a man on a mission. If I could move that marker in any direction, that's what I want to do. So just a few of the ones that came in this week that that I have permission to use online. I fall asleep faster by relaxing to the music. When I wake up in the middle of the night, instead of tossing and turning, I just turn over and fall right back to sleep again. That was a big takeaway. Is a lot of people say, hey, you know, I can fall asleep, but I can't stay asleep. That's been one of the big, huge things that has really been a blessing so far. A lot of people, I'm looking here, a lot of people used to take Ambien, you know, which to me is a very dangerous drug, Ambien. And here's a winner. Felicity says, pre, then post-menopause and fibromyalgia made me into a very poor sleeper for 15 years. I tried everything. Reluctantly, as my last resort, I had to settle for Ambien and its serious side effects. When my unit arrived, it worked for me from day one, which I'll get to that too. Thank you, and my health thanks you. Even if I have a bathroom break in the night, I'm back to sleep in no time. I've enjoyed a drug-free, uninterrupted 8 hours of sleep. I haven't enjoyed drug-free, uninterrupted 8 hours of sleep since the 80s. My waking days and mood have improved dramatically. I feel like my old self again. I can sleep through the night, every night, drug-free. I no longer dread going to bed and lying awake. I've suffered years with no sleeping, no matter how exhausted or weary I was, for 2 or 3 stretches of an hour and a half. Can you imagine an hour and a half of sleep? Now I'm symptom-free for the first time in years. The other night I slept 10 hours. OMG. I bought this from you mid-February. It took a few nights of adjustment, which is what I wanted to talk about. But now I absolutely love these songs. I play it at around 10 p.m., which is what time we're supposed to be asleep, until I wake in the morning and not only sleep well, but I truly feel it is raising my vibrational level. I feel happier and more positive, especially when I wake, but it carries on through the day. By evening, I can't wait to go to bed so I can turn on the music again. That's just one of hundreds. But I think an important thing for our listeners today is to know that a very high percentage of people instantly get a good night's sleep. Like I would say probably in the high 60s to 70% of the people turn it on and they go, oh my God, I fell asleep. But there's a lot of people that aren't used to sleeping with anything on, no noise whatsoever. For those people, like what I always tell them is, give it some time, because our brains are so amazingly made. They love patterns. And so the very first night your brain goes, And for some people, you know, it never goes past, I'll work with that. And you're done, you're out. Other people, the brain goes, with a question mark. And then the next night, And then for like a week or so, and then all of a sudden it goes, oh yeah, we're locking into this, and bang, from that point on, 8 hours straight. So I always tell people it takes 21 days to form a habit, and they have at least 30 days just to try it anyway. So I always say, you know, it's proven so far, even in our sleep study, that if someone will continue getting used to having this music playing, that eventually their brain will absolutely lock into it and help them with sleep.
Tell us a little bit more about your sleep study. That's really fascinating to me.
It is. There's a woman named Dr. Heather Hassenblas, and she's done work for a lot of people that you've seen, including Dr. Oz and Dr. Michael Bruce, who's known as the sleep doctor. Phenomenal woman. It's at the University of Jacksonville, Florida. And just amazing. It's a 40 person, it was, wow, over a month of every possible thing that you could test for. And though I'm not ready to share all the results right now, because we're going to publish them in a journal, and then we're going to start using them actually because they're factual, substantiated statistics. But I will tell you that the difference between any other modality of sleep, including melatonin, there's no comparison to that in WholeTones to sleep. It's definitive and now finally proven. Thank the Lord. I've got white paper data to prove what I'm saying is true. So.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you've talked a little bit about the sound frequencies and how those affect us. And I think probably there's something inside of all of us that knows that music has a profound impact on us. I mean, like I always want to listen to something that kind of fits my mood, you know, or if I'm in a really crummy mood, there's definitely music that I reach for to kind of like break me out of the pattern. I'm a huge fan of personal development, and I've been to a lot of Tony Robbins events. And if anyone has been to an event with Tony Robbins, you know that he uses music as part of the event to put people in state and to actually support a lot of the transformation that he creates during his event. So we know logically that music has a really powerful effect on us. And it's really fascinating that you've done something with the music that would actually support our sleep. And now you have clinical data to prove that music is supporting our sleep, you know?
Well, it's the soundtrack of the human life. I mean, we don't really think about it, but I mean, even our limbic system locks into tonality. And I remember, like, I can't remember what day it was a few weeks ago, but I was somewhere and I smelled a smell, or I'll taste something and I'll go, oh, I remember that smell when I was 16 on the baseball diamond. And so, right? And so now what they're finding out, which I find fascinating too, is the way our brain locks onto things, like I had mentioned earlier, that pattern. Alzheimer patients and people with dementia, they're using music therapy now to play certain music, and boom, like there'll be a woman that's been almost like comatose for months, and then she'll hear a song from the 50s and she'll get up and start dancing like she did when she was 25, and she'll remember the names of everyone in her classroom, and she'll have this unbelievable lucid time and then go back. Right. But that one stimulus, so, you know, people are working overtime to try to find out how frequency can enhance our lives. There's things that are going on in Australia right now that I could share some of it, but they're actually starting frequency-based inoculations. They're using inoculations without needles, using frequency, sound pressure. Unbelievable. Using sound pressure for acupressure. And some of the cool things that I've seen is cleaning polluted water by using 528 hertz and high amplitude. In a cubic square foot, they were able to clean a place after an oil spill off of Texas that was impregnated with oil balls. They were able to clean it to 98.6% clear by using sound waves. That, to me, is fascinating.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
528 hertz.
Sure. 528 hertz has an interesting history. It was originally in Latin called miraculorum, which means the miracle frequency. The reason that I think it got that name is because the work scientists have done with 528 is they've realized that it has a penchant for the human genome or the DNA strand. And so they actually believe that the frequency 528 hertz can restore DNA, broken DNA chain. That's a game changer. They're also testing it with, to see if it can work with life extension. You know what I mean? Like, just to see if it has any bearing on extending human life. One of the things I found fascinating is I published this and then I got in a bunch of trouble because somebody said, you're not a doctor, you can't say that, you're practicing music with medicine. But I wasn't. I was just telling them how it affects people. But, you know, unless you're a doctor, you can't say so much. So, but 528 hertz, the physiological component of it was the female organs, the reproductive system of the female. So I found that fascinating. So this will, you know, I think your listeners will find this fun because it was scary and then it was a blessing. But so I put out WholeTones and 528, the frequency. I started getting all this mail from women saying, okay, why is it when I play this one frequency, I get irritable and edgy and I'm nasty to my husband? And I thought, that is not why I designed this at all. So I'm going back to the Lord and I'm going, what do I do? What do I do? He said, take a survey. And so I thought, I'm going to ask them the question. Every guy knows you never ask a lady how old they are, but I had to. So I asked all these women that were upset. I said, please tell me what your age is and tell me how often you listen to that frequency per day. So everything came back. They were all, you guessed it, right in that beautiful, pre, mid, or goddess stage of menopause, like right there, right in the where everything's shifting and they're becoming even better. I didn't know what to do at first. So I'm thinking, what do I do? And then as soon as I asked that question, it was like, tell them to back off that one frequency and listen to it only twice a week until it doesn't bother them anymore. So that's what I did. I sent out the emails, and I said, hey, it's Michael. Listen, I want you to try an experiment. Don't listen to 528 every day because you guys are listening to it like 5 times a day. Listen to all the other ones that aren't bugging you, but only listen to that one twice a day or maybe twice a week even. Just you be the judge. So like 3 weeks later, love notes, love notes, love notes, love notes. OMG. Oh my gosh, my night sweats have stopped. Oh my gosh, my hot flashes have stopped. Oh my gosh, I'm sleeping through the night and I'm finding myself not irritable. And I thought, why don't I get this? It doesn't matter what the modality is. It could be laser probe, where however you're introducing the frequency in the body. You could do it with laser frequency. You could do it with music. You can do it with essential oils. I mean, you can do it a myriad of different ways of whatever your delivery method is. The point is, though, regardless of what you do, you have to remember therapeutic practice says that there has to be an opening frequency. And you have to be judicious about how you use the other frequencies afterwards. The opening frequency is 396 hertz that I use. And the reason it is because, and from working with people, one of the main dysfunctional components that a lot of us have is we feel unworthy to be healed by God. We do. We carry this thing it's almost like an inferiority complex with God. It's like, I'm not good enough, heal that person, but I'm a jerk and I don't deserve this. And when you have that, you don't realize you're putting up this wall and this barricade that says, no, don't touch me. I'm not. You're doing what Peter did. Depart from me, for I'm a man of unclean lips. I'm no good. And you know that Jesus scooched closer. You know that he did. You know he didn't leave him. He's still in the same frame when you keep reading. He didn't depart from his friend. And God won't depart from you either. And that's my point. It's like everybody is worthy to be healed. God loves us all. And so the first frequency is to get people into the place where they can believe that. Yes, I'm worthy to be healed by God. There isn't any reason in the world why he wouldn't want to touch me. And then after that, the other frequencies have specifics. And so you bring them in. So the 528 frequency, when that started, basically it's the same thing as like if I said, hey, Misty, I got a great idea. Let's, you and me at the same time in different states, let's go on a liver cleanse, okay? We go on a liver cleanse, and I had too many beets to my juice. And all of a sudden, I wake up the next morning, I'm going, Misty, I have a horrendous headache. I feel flu-like. I feel yucky. Let's call the Herxheimer response. And all it is what? The body detoxing too fast. That's all it is. And so music can do the same thing. Frequency is frequency, whether it's essential oil or a vegetable or, a bright colored fruit. All of those things are frequencies. And so if we say to our body, okay, I'm going to listen to 528 and I have a massive hormone imbalance, well, guess what could happen? It could get worse before it gets better. So you have to learn how to back off, not overdo it, not overstimulate the body. And then what happened a few weeks later when they did that? They made the adjustment, and now everything they wanted happened. My night sweats are gone. My hot flashes are gone. Who doesn't want their hot flashes gone, right? I walked through this with my wife. It was the scariest time of my life. This is from a man's perspective. It's like, the first thing a guy thinks about is himself. I don't understand why she's being this way. And then all of a sudden, God gets a hold of you, I hope. And he tells you, he said, you know what, as weird as this is, and even though you feel like you're losing your best friend, she's so miserable in her body right now. She feels like melted wax. This isn't about you, Michael. And I had to realize that I had to change. I had to make some huge adjustments. And during this time, thankfully, also 528, I was getting the understanding of how to use it. We began using that along with bioidentical hormones and other things that my wife did. And voila, everything was great. But that's a tough thing. And a lot of times people can't even talk about it. So it was such an honor to be able to have a frequency that helps so many women if it's used properly. And so we talked about 528. That was the big deal for 528. I ended up kind of like opening up Pandora's box, and then finding out that, you know, if you use it judiciously, then it can actually help. So
Yeah. Well, this is awesome. One of the things that is really important in the Healing Rosie community is that we take a look at a lot of different modalities that might be helpful. And I am excited about the women who are going to resonate with this and find that WholeTones is just the perfect addition to their protocol and what they're doing to really heal their bodies. So thank you so much, Michael, for sharing this amazing story about how WholeTones came to be and offering this to our community. I'm really excited to help you share this with everyone.
Oh my gosh, are we done already?
We are wrapping up.
Okay. Well, all I can say is I'm honored to be a part. Thank you for subjecting your listeners to me. I know I'm a different blend, but ultimately I'm just very, very thankful that that I was given something that I think is a gift for the world. And thank you so much for helping them find out how to get it and what to do with it.
Yeah, my honor to do that. Thank you so much, Michael.
Thank you.
Alrighty.